It's a beautiful day in paradise, and I want to thank everybody for being here at Stand Up and Speak Up. Today's show is amazing. I have a special guest coming in special. She's in Houston, Texas, and we woke her up this morning. I want to welcome my new friend, Gaati Werema. Welcome to Stand Up and Speak Up.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
I'm so glad you're here too. And Gaati and I have, like many of my guests, have not met in person. But we were introduced to each other through Women on Fire and Allison Harvey out of Ontario. And I was just watching your Woman on Fire video on the Inspirational Month with Allison.
Yes.
And I took notes. We're going to talk a little bit about that. I thought that was really fun.
Sweet.
And so to begin with, my friend, I like to have my guest tell us a little bit about your background, where you were from. Okay. For most of my guests, it's like 50 years ago, so they're trying hard to remember. You're one of my younger ones, and I love it. So where did you grow up? A little bit about your family, and then we'll go from there.
Yes. So I was born and raised in Miami, Florida. I am of Haitian and Kenyan descent. So in Miami, there's an area called Little Haiti where I spent some of my early years, and North Miami Beach before moving to Orlando to finish high school. So definitely a Florida girl, but growing up in that area, it's very communal. And even though it's in the States, you will find a lot of culture, the Haitian culture particularly. So the food, the language, I spoke Creole growing up, and I hadn't gone to Haiti until I was well into my 20s. Oh, so wow. That just shows you how much the culture is immersed there. But just immigrant parents. My mother, majority of the time, raised me and my 7 siblings. So, that was a lot. There was a lot going on all the time. And it was fun, but, as a lot of people in America live below the poverty line, we were a part of that group. And so that never deterred our spirit. We were always motivated by our mother, who was a praying woman, to just do our best. And no matter what is going on the outside, to make sure we show up and present our best selves all the time and just have faith in God. So I just grew up in a very religious home, but a lot of love. And there's so much to that. But I'm from Miami, Florida, and it was a very interesting upbringing. A lot of beaches and of course hot, but very fun.
Where were you in the group of 8?
I am number 5.
Oh, you're in the middle.
Yeah, I am. I have one older brother, and so we're the 2 in the middle. And I like to think I was one of those kids who was very perceptive, and because I saw the struggles that my mother had with the older ones and the younger ones, I tried to be the one that she didn't have to worry about. So I just grew up kind of be helping out, and just trying to be as mature as possible to not give her any headaches, because she had enough to deal with.
Well, sounds like you were a wonderful daughter. And how did you like to read, or were you always into sports? What kind of hobbies and stuff did you have?
Yeah, so growing up in the church, my mother always made sure that we knew the Bible. So she had us always reading the Bible and reading it to her to make sure that we were actually reading. But besides that, she was a stickler for education. So before we even started school, she made sure that we knew all our times tables to 12. And daily we'd have to write portions of the dictionary. So early on, she did not believe in television. And eventually she broke down and just had to get one to keep us entertained so we wouldn't hurt ourselves. But I was a reader. Back in the day on the radio, there used to be these stories called Adventure and Odyssey. And
those are great.
They were so good. And it used to come on like once a week. So me and my younger sister we just could not wait till Thursday to just sit in the car and hear the 30-minute to an hour episode. And even to this day, I have a insane love for audiobooks. Like, I hardly listen to music in my car. I have like 100+ books in my audiobook. I'm like, these people owe me at this point, but it's, yes.
That's like me too. But the Adventures in Odyssey, my grandchildren listen to those. We used to have them on CD, the old back in the day, and or whatever, you throw them in the DVD player, CD player in the car, and we could listen to those for hours.
Exactly. And it just took you on your mind on different adventures. And I think that's what started my wanderlust. So I have 2 older brothers, and my eldest one was into sports. And so when he went to the park to play, all of us went to the park. You know, we just kind of all followed him. And so that made us really active. We were always in the park and playing all the sports. Actually, near our school, we had a youth center. And so the youth center would have dance, golf, hockey, basketball. And so being that we were always there, particularly myself, I participated in everything. So I was on the golf club, on the dance team, and I got pulled in on the basketball team because I'm tall. So I'm 6 feet tall, and I've been this height since about the 7th grade. So when I first started, they would bring me on and they just tell me to put my hands up and play defense. And so I was really happy to do that, just be a little aggressive and try to block people. But eventually I'm like, I want to score. And so I kind of worked on my game outside of the team. And the first time I scored, they were so happy. They're like, wow, you can score now? And I'm like, yeah, I can score now. I don't only play defense. So and this was the next season. So I remember the first breakout game, I had a couple of points, and I got to the free throw line, and my coach told me to miss the first one and make the first one and miss the second one. And I thought, like, oh, wow, you can control if you make or miss. You know, I'm like, I didn't really realize that. I thought it was like a chance thing. And so from that time on, I decided that I wanted to learn the game so that I can make shots at my will, but also like just be great, because at the time the WNBA had just started and Miami had a team. And so my passion for basketball grew then once I went to a game and saw that women were playing basketball professionally and they were still beautiful and cute, which is, I was worried about that back then and still now today. But it was then that I decided that I wanted to play basketball and let that be how I got a scholarship for college and kind of bring me up from the instability that I grew up with.
Were you ostracized at all for doing that?
For playing basketball?
Well, for playing basketball and just concentrating so much, because I'm sure there are a lot of distractions, you know, between the beach and kids getting in trouble and mom on the other side.
I know, right? That's a great question. So when I was younger, we had a couple of incidents happen in our family. Like one of my older brothers got in a really bad car accident that put him in a coma while he was around 6 years old. So that kind of changed the landscape of our family. And then I got in an accident to where my front teeth were knocked out and my adult teeth just came in. So that was very devastating for me because my mother could not fix it. And bless her heart, she was like, you'll just have to grow up and be a dentist. I'm like, I don't want to be a dentist to fix my teeth.
My father's a dentist. You would love him.
I love dentists, actually.
You make a great dentist.
I've been in their office so many times. But once I was in 4th grade when that happened, and I became really insecure because it was my front teeth. And so basketball was a great space for me to immerse myself in, and a place where you're not judged. You're really just judged based on your performance level. And once I recognized that, I found a lot of joy because I wasn't self-conscious. And the better I got, the more popular I got despite my physical appearance. So when I during that time, it was really interesting because I've always been a quiet person, kid up until that point, but with basketball, I just gained more in popularity because I'd play all the time before school, after school. And so before school, all the guys, be looking for me to come play. So because all the guys were my friends, all the girls wanted to be my friends. And so, the girls would be like, hey, Gaati, come over here, come talk to us. And I'm like, okay. And then all the guys come, and next thing you know, everyone's together and talking and flirting. And I'm just still there, just enjoying myself. But that's what I love about the game. It brings people together on and off the court. And it also is a space where it can be a sanctuary of sorts. Like if you're going through a lot of people use basketball as therapy. It's saved a lot of people's lives. And I think I'm one of those people because I was able to focus on my game, and it made me great as opposed to building on my insecurities.
And that's really important. I'm thinking back when I was in between like 7th and 8th grade, I grew 6 inches in the summer.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
it got me only to 5'8", so I'm not as tall as you, but at 5'8", at 13 years old, you're pretty tall. Usually the boys are a lot shorter than you are.
Yes.
And that's when the shoulders start to hump a little bit. And I felt like we kind of go small because we don't want to be taller than the boys, taller than your brothers and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Were you tall as a young girl too, or was there a time when you just had that growth spurt?
Yeah, I was always one of the tallest. I remember in my elementary school, it was 2 of us that were the 2 tall girls. And I'm so competitive. Once I realized there was someone taller than me, I'm like, I want to be taller than her. So she wound up being 6'5", which I thought maybe I'd grow more. But after the 7th grade, God thought 6 feet was enough. So yeah, it really was a blessing. Once I stopped tripping over myself and got some coordination, the game of basketball drew a lot of coaches into my life who instilled discipline, who taught me how to work out, and who would monitor how I was doing in school to determine if I would play or not. And so there started being a lot of accountability and a lot of people speaking into my life as a result of these coaches coming in and these great teammates that we would hold each other accountable to make sure that we were able to play. So no getting in trouble, no, like hanging out with the wrong crowds, because basketball was our focus and winning was our focus. And by the time I was in 6th grade, I had a core group of girls, about 5 of us, who were just so focused. Like everyone knew we were going to be basketball players, and everyone supported that. And it was really great to have the support of the community.
That's nice. It wasn't just you, because I could see there's a lot of pressure put on young athletes. Yes. By families, by coaches, by someone trying to monetize what you're doing later on.
Yes.
And that, so did that manifest at all in your life too? Especially because you got the scholarship to college, went on to school, and then how did you move forward from there? Because that was pretty exciting.
It was, and I want to. So in 6th grade, I had a friend whose mom worked at Barry University, and she was selected as a ball girl. So she was one of my teammates, and she was like, come they need an extra girl. You should come and do it. I'm like, all right. So while I'm there, this is my first time seeing women play in college. So I'm just watching this high-paced game, and they're so skilled, and I'm just in awe, and I'm here wiping the floors, getting the balls for them, just so happy to be there. And afterwards, I go to the coach and I ask her, I'm like, if I want to go to college and play basketball, how do I do it? Like, how good do I have to be? And she looked me up and down, and she was like, well, when you graduate, come see me and I'll give you a scholarship. I'm like, but you never saw me play. She was like, I know you're good. So I'm like, well, if she's offering me a scholarship on the spot, I wonder how many schools would be interested in me and how big can I go? And so with the discipline I learned through a coach in Miami named Coach Thomas, who taught me how to work out and push my body, we moved to Orlando. And I was a little devastated because I told you I had my core group. We were going to go to high school together, win championships and all that, but it was ripped apart. And so it wound up being a blessing because when I got to Orlando, I was discovered by a renowned NBA professional trainer who taught me my shot. And that was around the 8th grade. And so I became known for my aggressive game, my ability to rebound, and my ability to score from anywhere on the court, and became highly recruited by like 40 schools.
Wow.
Yeah. They even had a MTV special they were doing on women athletes. It was a new initiative, and they selected several girls from different cities around the country, and I was one of them. So there was a camera, two journalists who would come and follow me and come to the games, and although I was excelling at sports, I was still a little insecure because now my teeth are still broken and I'm trying to be a feminine girl and I just feel unattractive. But I just had a lot of internal talks with myself to motivate, just saying that you can either cower now or be bold now and get your exposure and eventually fix your teeth. Like, let that be the mindset. And so I chose boldness, and high school won two high school championships. And for college, it was interesting because for the 40 schools that recruited me, I didn't know where to go. And my mother and my stepdad, they're not sports people. And so they really didn't have much insight about what school to go to, but they were a little scared for me to go to a larger university. They wanted me to go somewhere where I could get individualized attention and the coach would look out for me as a woman, as a young Black woman. They were just very scared to send me into the world. And so there's a legend, her name is Cynthia Cooper, who would come around and recruited me, and my parents fell in love with her and convinced me to go to Prairie View A&M University, where I attended in Texas. And it was really great. We won several championships. Unfortunately, HBCUs don't get a lot of exposure, national exposure, and the possibility of going pro from HBCUs is just really slim. And so I understood that, but I went anyway because I just wanted to go against the grain and show that HBCUs can get quality players, elite players. And we won 3 championships, conference championships, went to the NCAAs. But yeah, unfortunately, I was struck by the injury bug and I tore my knee twice. So yeah, once I recovered my senior year, I wind up going to a combine, an opportunity for players to get seen by professional and international teams. And from there, I was invited to China. And once I went to China, I just kind of kept my career overseas.
Well, I was watching, I do research on my guests, and I was watching some of the things you were doing in Romania. One of my former guests was Romanian, but I'm listening, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's all in Romanian. I couldn't understand a thing except for your name. I saw your number and your name, I could hear your name.
Yeah.
But you were there for a while, right? Were you in
9 months?
How did you get along? I mean, you didn't grow up with Romanian. They speak English, or did you just kind of sign language through it?
Ce faci to all the Romanians. I think what helped me was having parents that are immigrants, and being so closely immersed in the Caribbean culture. And Miami, of course, is a melting pot of different cultures. And so I'm really happy to say that I really haven't had issues with other groups, because we're all kind of going through the same struggle and the same journey. And so when I would travel, I just kept that in mind. And if you treat people respectful, you'll more times than not have that reciprocated. And so for me, I am an athlete, but I'm also a nerd. So like when I go somewhere, I want to know about the culture. I want to know the history of it, where they are now, who the people are historically. And so I ask a lot of questions. And when you ask questions and you're interested, people are interested in you and they want to share about their culture. So it was really great. Actually, I had a lot of sweet teammates that they would take us out, the Americans, because typically, depending on what country and how much money the club has, will depend on how many foreigners you can have. And so this team had about 3 foreigners, so 2 Americans and a Serbian player, and they just really showered us with love. Romania, if you guys don't know, is a party town, okay? Like they party from the afternoon to the next day when the sun comes up. So, I experienced some of that. I'm always trying new foods. The shopping was really great. So that was a lot of fun. It's a really big city. Like, I don't know if a lot of people know Bucharest. I was in the capital. It's a huge city, subway system, tram system. So it was really great to explore everywhere that I traveled. I traveled to Italy, Austria, Czech Republic, China, which I mentioned, Beirut, Lebanon. I went there twice. It was really amazing. Qatar, Alexandria, Egypt, Cairo, Egypt, and each place that I went, I made sure to explore and learn something new and enjoy myself and love on the people that were around me. So it was just such an incredible experience.
So you're a rock star. You're a celebrity. So in that vein, though, it's interesting being somewhat of a known personality, especially with your basketball team. These tall girls are showing up. Were there any people that wanted to take advantage of you?
There are always some of those people in the world. There were people that had issues with me being a woman making good money ahead of them. And there were people who had issues with me being Black in their countries. So they would yell out slurs or say inappropriate comments about my body or whatever. But I would say more times than not, it'd be respect and sometimes, a lot of times, indifference, a lot of staring. I just got used to people just looking at me. In the States, when someone's staring at you, when you look at them, they typically turn their heads.
Yeah.
Not over there. You look at them and they're gonna keep staring at you. They win all the staring contests. Okay. So, people wanting to touch you.
I was going to ask if not just your skin, but maybe your hair.
Yes. In China, it was so incredible. We were having these games at all these new arenas that they were building, and the whole cities would come out, and we had to be escorted by guards because people would just rush us and just be pulling on us. And I remember in our hotel when we were eating at different times, the ladies would come over and ask to touch my hat. They would call it my hat. And I'm like, okay, like I tell one person yes, the next thing 5 people are in my hair. I'm like, okay, get it in while you can. And then just like rubbing on my skin, I guess, trying to see if it's gonna rub off, if the color's gonna rub off, just really interesting. And so many interesting moments. But I would say for the most part, it was so much love, that outweighed the the ones who chose to be ignorant. I will say this, there was one turning point, and this happened in Romania. So there were a lot of American basketball players because there are a lot of teams. So if each one has two, maybe there were about 20 of us in the country. And so this particular weekend, a lot of the athletes came to Bucharest because it was the capital. And there's one young player in particular who lived about 45 minutes away. He decided not to come, and he would meet us the next day because it was a weekend plan that we had planned. And this just showed us the reality of just like everywhere, and how you have to always be mindful of where you are in your surroundings. He was out with his teammates, was drinking, having a merry time, and a local girl came and was flirting with him and was making advances on him. And he put his hat on her head, and I guess some people saw and they beat him up. And it was so bad that he was rushed to the hospital and he never woke up.
Oh.
Yeah, and so it was a time that, a lot of players decided to go back home because, who wants to come and play basketball and have their family get a call that, they're never coming home again. And so it just showed us the realities of a lot of places in this world, and that you just have to always be careful and be mindful, no matter what age you are. If you're traveling alone, just make sure that you protect yourself. And it was a young Black man, and there were some really nasty things said about him. And it was around the time that the Trayvon Martin incident happened. And so, just trying to deal with the realities of cruel human nature. And being a young woman, it was a lot for me because I'm very emotional. Like, I'm very connected to people and culture. And so that was almost a turning point for me, and a lot of players it was for them. But yeah, it just was a lesson that we all learned to be extra careful when you're traveling internationally, because you never know who has what intentions for you.
Well, that's true anywhere, but I find it's an extraordinary experience for you to have traveled outside of the country. I'm a big proponent of get away from America, get away from where you live, so that when you come home, you see things through the eyes that have been changed on an international basis. So when you came home, how did that experience living overseas change the way you viewed what was going on here in America? Kind of a broad topic, but
yeah, no, I understand.
How do you feel about home?
I just recognize the privilege that we have in this country. And with that privilege, for myself, I understand that we create the life that we want, and we have to go for what we want. Like, there's a lot of individuals who make excuses about what they can't do, and how do I put this? Basically, okay, so for example, I noticed that a lot of countries don't have, let's say, financial aid or credit cards, or can't set up businesses like we can here. Here, the average person can go on the Secretary of State website, start your business, and begin to build. And so for me, understanding the privileges that we have here made me want to take advantage of them as an American. And then it helped me to be an advocate, like you were just saying, for travel, because the more you travel, the more it expands your mind, and the problems that we think are so big, we realize that they're not insurmountable, and that we're really stronger than we think. Because we're all going through similar experiences, like I was saying, and we have to be mindful of just the energy that we put into what we do and what we give others. I will say this too, growing up really Christian, and going to parts of the world that observed other religions, I saw that what I like to say, love is my religion, because when you go and you're speaking to people who have different beliefs and different ways of living than you, you realize that you all are trying to accomplish the same goal, all trying to be good people, trying to help others, serve others. And in that way, it kind of dissolved a lot of the separation that I thought different religions brought into the picture, and rather helped me understand that, we're all kind of on the same path, and walking with others is just, it makes us stronger. And so, yeah, I know that was
well, no, I think it comes down to understanding and seeing a different perspective. I lived in Germany for 3 years and traveled fairly extensively, but there were times when I felt alone, especially, I didn't, my husband at the time spoke German, so he could get us into places that I couldn't. I spoke smiles. And I had kids, and so my kids were well behaved, and they kind of got us into doors, because the Germans would think that you bring kids into a restaurant, they kind of go, you bring a dog in, and they were fine. But I made sure that my kids were well behaved and they could sit there and eat a meal. So it showed them that not all American kids are hooligans. But I just found, especially in my show now, I've interviewed a lot of folks, and I loved their stories. I love that all of us have something that's happened in our lives, that we've hit rock bottom, we've come back up, we can show hope to anybody. Yeah. And it's being open and honest and vulnerable about what we've done, who we are, sharing our families and our upbringing in a way that, like, I have a friend the other day, she said, I could tell you I had a horrible growing childhood experience, but I've chosen to rewrite the story.
Yeah, I love that.
It's all between the ears. Yeah, we've all had something awful happen to us. We need to rewrite the story, because life's too short to live in the past or live in that pain. And
yes,
I love what we're talking about, and I love what you're doing with the basketball and the ladies of the game. And you're empowering the young women. But I got to tell you, I laughed this morning. I was watching a YouTube interview you did in Atlanta with 3 gals and a guy, and you started,
oh my gosh,
what's up, Atlanta, or something like that.
Yeah,
you started talking about dating.
Yes,
that was a really interesting discussion, at least from my point looking in, because I could be your mom. And but I was also talking to another friend about Atlanta. You now live in Atlanta.
Yes.
How long have you been there?
I've been there about 7 months.
Okay. So what was your experience moving to Atlanta? Because I think they referenced it as the Black Hollywood.
Yeah.
I lived in Atlanta after college, and of course I was just there for a short time. I have a lot of friends that have moved there. So what's the feeling now? How do you feel about moving to a city that they call that? And how are you doing?
Yes. So pre-pandemic, I was in grad school in Houston. And I'm very familiar with Houston because I attended undergrad here. So now I've been in Houston. Well, at the time I've been in Houston longer than I was in Orlando for high school. And I thought Houston was great, but I'm an East Coast girl, being from Florida, and I wanted to be closer to beaches. Also, I have 2 sisters and a handful of nephews that live in Atlanta. And so I'd always visit. And when I was there, I always wanted to spend more time. And it does have the Black Hollywood moniker. And it attracted me because there's a high concentration of African Americans who are successful, and who not only are they successful, but they like helping others. And there's a lot of projects. And so over the years, as I've been an athlete, I've always been really involved in community outreach, in the music and the arts. I grew up in choirs, and I did plays, and I used to do competitive speeches. So the idea, after I got my master's in community development, and once things opened back up after the pandemic, it was like a reset for a lot of people. And I thought that in this time where a lot of people are rediscovering or reemerging as, their new selves, or creating opportunities for themselves, I thought that Atlanta would be a really good place for me because it was close to home, about 6 hours from my parents and some of my other siblings. And what I really love about Atlanta, which is the city is right there, but then you can go into nature, you can find waterfalls and parks. And for me, that is really important because I use nature as a healing tool. So to disconnect, and now I don't have to go, to another state or hours away. I can drive 30 minutes and be immersed in the woods.
Yeah.
And be satisfied. So I'm really happy to establish Ladies of the Game Georgia there, which I have. And I've already gotten several young ladies in the community who want to be a part of my program. So yeah.
What is Ladies of the Game?
So Ladies of the Game was created for in high school. Being an athlete, I mentioned that a lot of coaches came into my life and they really helped develop me to get me prepared for where I was going to go. And so during that journey, I did have a couple of coaches who would get a little selfish with me and want me to go where they wanted me to go or do what they wanted me to do. And as a young girl, I was a little confused at times on what I should do. And so sometimes I felt like I didn't have a core person or people that I could just trust with my best interest. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes I felt lost. And speaking to some of my teammates, I realized that that was the case for a lot of athletes, and particularly women don't get as much attention as men, of course, men's sports. So I decided to start Ladies of the Game once I started playing overseas. When I'd come back home, I'd be an assistant coach for a high school that didn't have as many resources. And I decided to, the girls who wanted the help, I would mentor them, train them, prepare them for college, let them know everything that it took to get a scholarship, understand financial aid, all the aspects of what it takes to be just a successful student and athlete. And it caught popularity pretty quickly. I had the support of, there's a famous football player named Edgerrin James. He just got into the Hall of Fame, and he's in Orlando, Florida. He's based there, and he has a property where he has basketball courts. Is a huge facility, and he let me use his basketball courts to do my camps. And so I'd bring girls from the community in, I trained them, just on basketball and life, and it started taking just a life of itself. So I helped about 10 girls get into school, and a lot of them have graduated already, and they're doing really well. And these are girls who come from, the inner city, whose parents can't really help them, and who don't understand what it takes to, function as an adult in society, just understanding credit and how to buy a car and how to get an apartment. And so these things I thought was so important to understand, and particularly for athletes and leaders, because we're the self-starters and we're the ones who are looking for the help. And so I just wanted to be that person that could connect them to resources or information or training to help them be, who they wanted to be successfully.
I think that's extraordinary. And I'm going to connect to one of our listeners actually runs a group called Women Navigating Finances, and a good friend of mine, financial planner friend of mine, and always is doing work with usually women my age and folks that have lost their spouses. But I can hear on the other side, I can hear her brain going, what a great idea, teaching these young women about finances, and especially women in sports. I think it's amazing because we hear so much about athletes getting a ton of money and wasting it or blowing it or spending it on gazillion-dollar houses. I love seeing that you're putting the emphasis back on service to others and helping other young women, because I can imagine that it's an overwhelming thing to have all these people come into your life and try to run it.
Exactly. And now the great thing is college athletes can get paid off of their name and likeness, which creates its own set of, I guess, issues when it comes to who's getting paid, who's not getting paid. And so, of course, the higher profile players are the ones who have the endorsements. But what I like to do is the ones who aren't maybe being seen, encourage them to start their own business, to start their own clothing line, because they will have fans, they will have people in their circle, in their school, their community that support them. So give them something to support. And with that, you can leverage your own name and likeness as opposed to waiting on someone to come give you a deal. So that's another part of Ladies of the Game that I've expanded and extended. And I have my first young lady starting her clothing line this fall. So that's really exciting. And so she's the first, but I plan to have at least 20 girls by the end of the year who I'm able to connect and get them their own business and start building that business credit, so that when they've graduated, they can leverage that and use it to their advantage as they're going out of their sport or continuing to play their game.
Well, that's tremendous, because that's empowering them. And you and I have talked too about being taken advantage of. And I did tell people about the real estate issue that you had, and I want to touch on it very briefly. It's not a positive thing, but there's a lot to learn from it. When you wanted to get into real estate, was that recently in Atlanta that happened? And tell us what happened with this real estate deal gone bad.
Yes. So no, that happened in Houston around 2017. I had just started officially made Ladies of the Game an LLC. And I was majoring in community development and going through a lot of real estate seminars to be a developer. That's really what I was heading towards. And so I met someone who had a business development company who worked with a lot of realtors, who wind up scamming me out of $3,000. We went to a legit site and there were actually several people involved, but seems like it was a setup by him and an intricate ruse to get this money out of me. And
it was an online investment thing?
No, we had met in person. He targeted me at Starbucks when I was there studying and doing some work, actually for a real estate class I was taking. And from there proceeded, with the scheme, which took about a month long, several discussions. I didn't just easily hand that over, but, it just showed me that people will go through a lot of hoops and put up a lot of smoke and mirrors to take advantage of others. And I feel like I was a little naive, and it's funny because you don't think you're naive, and you like to think that you're a mindful, discerning person, but there's always those people who will try to come in more crafty ways and take advantage. So that happened in 2017, and it was not a pleasant experience.
And you told me that you weren't able to get the money back because when you went to a lawyer, what did the lawyer tell you?
Yeah, the lawyer said it would cost more money to fight to try to get it back than it would be to just let it go. Of course, I called a million times, sent all kind of text messages, and he would say, okay, this weekend, next weekend, okay. And then eventually he was like, well, I gave you a letter of advice, so this is my payment, and this is my payment for helping you, and don't ask me about this money anymore. I was like, whoa, okay. When I think about it, it still turns my stomach a little bit, but, I'm able to, at least the lesson is to help a lot of these people that I'm working with and let them know what to be mindful of, like how to verify even further, how to recognize individuals that are trying to take advantage of you, you know, how to not take too many risks with your own personal money, things like that.
Well, it comes down to beware and be aware, and knowing what's out there. And the scammers are they're criminals, and they're very skilled at what they do. And
Yes.
the thing to learn from this is don't blame yourself. It happens. It happens to the best of us. In many ways, either online or in person. I mean, it's the fraud is extraordinary. It's bad. It hurts people, and the people that are perpetrating it have zero conscience about it. They don't care.
Certainly.
And banks, you know, typically when I worked in a bank, typically anything under $2,000, if they would write it off. Law enforcement, again, it's very difficult to prove it and to get it back. So it's unfortunate, but the scammers know that. And so they're going to go $2,000 from a lot of people is better than $1 million from one.
Yeah.
So
be mindful and discerning and vigilant. All
but
those
that experience has taught you in your women of the game to show these girls what's out there, because particularly as they become better athletes and they're more well known, I'm sure you've seen this, that people are going to try to take advantage of you because of who you are.
Yes. Yes.
And that was part of your discussion with the guys in the dating thing in Atlanta was,
yes.
Do you feel that people are being fake and especially online where they're putting up these profiles to entice you in, and then you meet them in person if you do, and are they the same person? What are you finding?
Well, you know, there are a lot of catfish, you know,
Hate that term, but that's what people understand.
Yeah, and not only visually, but personality wise, you know, presenting to be someone else, and you know, not being that, you know, when you actually meet them or when you get to know them. So, you know, for me, it's something that to be really mindful of, not to just you know, walk around scorned or scared to interact with people or, you know, give people a chance, but really watching the signs. And once you see certain things, and especially things that don't agree with you, making sure that you pivot and remove yourself from the situation. I think that a lot of people, you know, we're craving companionship, craving friendship, to where sometimes we let our guards down. But it's really important to protect yourself, protect your heart, protect your mind. And with that, that means setting boundaries, whether it's people you're meeting who want to come into your life, like let them prove why they should be a part of your life, your friendship. People who are your friends, you know, doing an audit of your friendships and how they're serving you, and even, you know, your family, you know, just making sure that your boundaries are intact to protect yourself and preserve you so that you can be effective in whatever you're doing, and are able to show love to people, you know, and not just there's so many people who are scarred by these things. And so you don't want to be one of those people who are, you know, regretting and just you know, destroyed by these actions.
Yeah, your past is not your destiny. And but sometimes we have to take, what I like to say is we take that pain and make it our purpose, and then it becomes our passion. And you live from it, learn from it, and you got to put it behind you and make sure it doesn't happen again. But I love how you're doing that from your experience with these young girls, because we're all here to help each other.
Yes.
And there's enough competition out there, especially on the basketball court, that you don't need that in your life outside of the court. And I love how you're giving back to those young women. And I know if you need any assistance, I could help. I've got lots of friends, I'm sure, that would chip in, because we want these young women to be successful. We want them. I wish I knew when I was 20 what I know now at 64.
Tell me about it.
But I can give you, if you listen, we can give you some of those words of wisdom that a friend of mine, Sharon Frame out of Atlanta, her group is called the Wow Women. It's Women of Wisdom. Wow. And I met some fabulous ladies up in Atlanta when I was there a few years ago. and they're fun. And I was look totally different than everybody else up there, but we were sisters from the heart.
Love it.
And it was great. And so I that's why I wanted to connect with you. I love what you're doing. I encourage you to keep it up. And if you need any assistance, let us know. I've got girls that, I've just put the word out.
I like that.
But it's fun and keep it up. And I'm sorry for the real estate thing. Unfortunately, it happens. Scammers are out there in everything. Just be careful, protect yourself online, in person. And you said it, it's a situational awareness. It's knowing what's happening around you. So last word, my friend, give us a pitch for how people can get a hold of you and where they can find the ladies of the game.
Yes. So social media, it's my name, Gaati Werema, GaatiWerema, and that's on Facebook, Instagram. Also, my website is almost complete, but you can go up and sign up for the newsletter on www.ladiesofthegame.com. So thank you so much, Debbie. I was, one thing you just said that just stuck out was, your past doesn't define you. The things that once hurt you, once you step back and look at them, you can turn them into strengths and use them to your benefit. So I'm really happy. I read your story, I heard your story, and, I think you're such an inspiring, incredible woman. And thank you so much for having this platform and inviting me on to share. This has been really beautiful and amazing. So thank you.
My pleasure. And you tell your young girls to be careful. Those online guys can be really dangerous.
I will.
Thank you, my friends, so much for being with us. I'm going to end this show, and everybody have a wonderful day. Thank you for listening to Stand Up and Speak Up. We are dedicated to encouraging you to remove the mask of embarrassment and to being your best self. If you are the victim of a scam or cybercrime, please visit againstscams.org for assistance and guidance about options and recovery. SCARS, the Society of Citizens Against Relationship Scams, is an incorporated nonprofit crime victims assistance organization based in Miami, Florida, supporting scam victims worldwide. If you can, make a small donation to help victims around the world receive the help they need. This episode has been sponsored by BenfoComplete.com, a vitamin supplement company that supports happy and healthy hands and feet for those with neuropathy. If you or anyone you know struggles with the pins and needles or numbness in their hands and feet, check out our benfotiamine products at BenfoComplete.com. Use the special code STANDUP for a 5% discount on your purchase. Again, thank you for being with us today. Go to my website, The Woman Behind the Smile, for additional resources and information. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and enjoy the replays. My books are all available on Amazon.com and Audible, and I encourage you to join us again. Have a great day.